Oh, what?
brought up.
About the burritos?
Number one, you need to calm down with your Taco Bell slander because it is just out of pocket, Roger.
I have never tasted a worse burrito than one from Taco Bell. It
Okay.
literally is sour cream and guacamole surrounded by a poorly wrapped tortilla.
Let's also understand that the guacamole doesn't even have guacamole consistency, and it is just sort of like a toothpaste that is flavored like guacamole, and it's the best. And to put all this other crap, I mean, like number one, you're throwing in El Faro as a fast food burrito. That's unfair. Like you can't call El Faro a fast food burrito. Like, and then. Really, this is something that is unforgivable. And like we've been friends for years. I don't know if this will ever recover. That you would put a breakfast burrito from McDonald's or Burger King over a Taco Bell burrito.
Yes, I would.
I agree.
I don't want to listen. Number one, this show's canceled. Like I'll just record it by myself because I like. Both of you have damaged your credibility to the point that I don't know if anyone's even going to want to listen to the show.
There is nothing you can eat at Taco Bell that is worth eating. It's like there's nothing healthy. There's no way you could eat anything there.
Okay, number one, that's ridiculous. This has been a ridiculous conversation, and me and millions of others understand that Taco Bell is not Mexican. It is Taco Bell, and it is.
Do you guys have Del Taco?
Yes, it's just as bad here as it is
better
everywhere else.
than Taco Bell.
Del Taco
is better than Taco Bell.
Del Taco is bad Mexican food. Taco Bell is Taco Bell. It is its own thing.
I will say they put something in the Doritos Locos Tacos or whatever the hell they call it.
Yeah.
That's pretty like makes you want another one.
Yeah.
But the problem is after you eat 3 of those, in about 5 minutes you regret it. It's like, why did I eat 3 of these? I could have had one.
Of course you regret it. It's Taco Bell. It's part of the experience. You regret White Castle when you eat it. You regret any fast food when you eat it.
I don't regret In-N-Out. I've never regretted In-N-Out. I felt In-N-Out, but I've never.
In-N-Out's a good burger. Listen, nothing that you get in a fast food, nothing that you get and you can eat in your car is ever going to make you feel good. And it ain't meant to make you feel good.
Do you like Baja Fresh?
Yeah, it's all right.
I like Baja Fresh.
Here's the thing, though, is like when you're talking about a fast food taco, the closer you get to good Mexican food, but without getting it, you get into an uncanny valley.
Like what?
Like I don't need Toy Story to be Schindler's List. Like there's room on the food spectrum for everything.
Toy List. You know, why don't they just ship everything in Taco Bell in Happy Meal style, toilet paper?
Really, it's this. This is the one thing.
What is the problem with just eating
burrito
food someplace else?
The breakfast burrito from McDonald's or Burger King.
Oh no, just skip all that altogether. I'm just saying, why don't you just like go to someplace, the worst case scenario, Waffle House. I mean,
there are no Waffle Houses that I know of on the West Coast.
I will love a Waffle House. I love a Waffle House that is every worst stereotype about Waffle House. Like, I love the over chatty cook. I love the fact that it smells like somebody's smoking in there, despite the fact that that's illegal and gross. Like
that's not happening. Not today. They're pretty clean for the most part. I don't think it smells like smoke. And
no, that's the one I love. I love that one.
No. I go to the ones that get like a 90. For score or something. I mean, I'm not doing the.
There was a Waffle House by my place when I lived in Florida that in the time that I lived there, and granted, I grew up around there, so this is over the span of about 15 years, had no less than 3 murders take place.
It's Florida. Every story starts with a Florida man. That's just the way it goes.
I mean, number one, absolutely. But here, look at this. Mr. Anthropology in our Slack says that the fast food burrito hierarchy goes Taco Bell, Going Hungry, Chipotle, and Qdoba. Qdoba's at the top of the list. So we went from bottom to top. I don't even know. What is a Going Hungry?
Going hungry, not eating.
Oh, that's not a fast food restaurant.
I'm assuming he's saying you just go hungry.
Going hungry. Okay.
And so that Taco Bell is below starving.
So Taco Bell is below starvation. Then we have Chipotle and then Qdoba. I don't know who these Qdoba people are.
I don't even know what Qdoba is.
Well, I mean, like, I've eaten at a Qdoba. I eat burrito, but I'll go with Chipotle over Qdoba any old day of the week. And also, Chipotle and Taco Bell are not in the same food group because Chipotle is Mexican food and Taco Bell is Taco Bell.
You know what's weird is as much flack as Tex-Mex gets, that's actually its own cuisine. It's not like a weird half-assed Mexican cuisine. It's a very specific regional cuisine.
Oh, certainly so. I think if you like great Tex-Mex tastes better or not better, but different than great Mexican.
Yeah.
Like it is its own thing.
I think the most popular one is chili. It's most well known, I think. I don't know if nachos count since nachos might be.
Would nachos count as that?
It came from Mexico though. It came from from a couple of border crossers who went shopping south of the border and they ate at a Mexican restaurant. That's the only thing the not the cook but the owner had at the time because I guess he ran out of food. He gave him a bowl of tortilla chips that he diced and fried and added cheese. I'm sure it's not like the kind you get at a county fair where it's that weird cheddar liquid that I used to serve up in the Exploratorium.
I have never ever had a discussion so long about about a taco or a Mexican place or like just go buy the stuff at the grocery store and make your own. It'll be way healthier.
That would take
effort. All right, listen. Sure, man, if you put enough words together, eventually they make sense. Like that does not solve the problem of I'm hungry and I'm in my car and I need to eat something in my car. I ain't got a kitchen in my car. I don't have a skillet. I don't have a chopping board. Like, yeah, sure. Like you could do it. But also I see a Taco Bell or they found a new way to combine meat, cheese, and refried beans. And I need to find out what this new artistry is.
So, Beatmaster.
Delicious. I just try not to do those things.
No, it's better. It's better for your health. It's better for your life to not do it, right? But there's
you can always stop at like a little health store and get one of them nut bars and eat that instead.
Oh, those things can be bad for you though. There's like the really good ones taste like crap. Like the ones that are actually not, I shouldn't say healthy, but actually do what they're supposed to do. They just taste like chalk.
Yep.
Because all the stuff that make it palatable makes it unhealthy. The chocolate chips, the overly sugar, whatever, they dust on it. All right, I'm gonna hide.
All right, and I'm still recording locally, right?
Yeah. So you're just gonna record the show. I have to record the whole thing for the treasure chest. Yeah. So including the conversations and stuff. So Scott, Justin's is basically going to start the show. He's going to read off a few things, and then he'll bring you in with the news.
Scott Moulton, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And then
I'm going to go through the news. If you have anything to comment on, then please feel free. Otherwise, I will just rock and roll past it.
Okay.
All right. You want to start a minute early?
Sure. I think we have a couple of times this week.
All right. Let's go ahead. The Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience and not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, September 8th, 2016. I'm Justin Robert Young, filling in for a vacationing man in Japan, Tom Merritt. I'm going to be joined by, let's introduce him now, why don't we? Scott Moulton, computer forensics and data recovery expert. Scott, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Oh, I can't complain. It is a joy. as always, to host the Daily Tech News Show. And we have a very, very, very interesting conversation coming up specifically about data and whether or not it is a tangible property. Just to give people a little bit of a whistle wetting on this subject. You are not only an expert on a subject, but there is some interesting legal precedent that is imminent to be set.
Right, that's correct. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks guys, for having me.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the news. In an interview with BuzzFeed, Apple's Senior VP of Hardware Engineering, Dan Riccio, explained that the removal of the headphone jack on the iPhone 7, saying it was, quote, fighting for space with camera technologies and processors and battery life, and frankly, there's a better modern solution available. It's crazy to keep it around. Of course, to replace the audio jack, Apple created the AirPod earbuds powered by the W1 wireless chip. According to Recode, the W1 wireless chip is Bluetooth with some additional code to allow seamless pairing with the iPhone 7 and to register earbuds over iCloud with iPads, Apple Watches, and Macs. But, and this is something that I feel like got lost in a lot of the discussion yesterday, they will work with non-Apple devices as Bluetooth devices by themselves. So you won't get the seamless special sauce code, but you can connect them with non-Apple devices. Scott, what was your take on some of the Apple announcements yesterday, and will you mourn the loss of a headphone jack should you get an iPhone 7?
Well, I feel like, they keep messing with certain ports, and I've always kind of felt like this over time, computers and everything, that certain ports that we had no problem with, that's the only port that, like, there was never fuss. There was, you plug something in, you could test it, it worked. And I will mourn the loss of the headphone jack for that main reason, that it was very simple. And when you have a complicated problem and you're trying to troubleshoot something, which, for most of us, that's our whole life, is to try to deal with problems that other users have or something that happens. And so I'm concerned that, I felt that way about the mouse port when it originally went away, the keyboard port. I mean, there's a couple of things they added complexities to. But to be fair, after they did it, there were some problems in the beginning of getting rid of key port and mouse ports, and they eventually kind of went away. And I don't really consider them to be a problem. You don't feel a lot of times like your Bluetooth or something's not working right by comparison. So maybe there'll be some growing pains at the beginning. It's really going to be for people who listen to music in their car and they don't have a direct connection in their car already, because there's still a lot of 10-year-old cars, even 5-year-old cars that don't have a Bluetooth connection or an auxiliary jack that's going to be easy. Now, I do understand they also have a plug where you're going to be able to use through the bottom of the phone. You can still plug in a dongle and then plug in your audio, but you can't charge.
And that dongle is coming free.
Right. Except that it doesn't charge, as I understand, at the same time. Right now, currently, that, if I understood correctly what they said, is you could only listen to audio, but you could not charge your phone at the same time. So if you're on a 10-hour...
It's only one port. Previously, you would be able to plug in your headphones and plug in the charging at the same time. I do think that there is one thing that sort of became clear in Apple's justification of the move afterward, which is that this is not us making a cavalier decision. And certainly Phil Schiller's courageous comment got, I think, not undue criticism. Although, considering the fact that the volume of headlines that came out both yesterday and today, it certainly does take a little bit of fortitude to face that kind of music. But that being said, Apple's justification is, in their mind, what they're selling today, is that this is not the loss of the headphone jack for the loss of the headphone jack. And although we believe that the future of audio is wireless, it's not even necessarily the reason why we did it now. The reason why we did it now is battery life, camera functionality, and haptic feedback, and waterproof.
Right.
Yeah, we could not.
And I agree with the waterproof.
Things.
I definitely agree with the waterproof statement, that without a doubt, that's one of the places where water does, doing repairs and doing forensics and doing things on damaged phones. It is one of the places where that is more likely that water is going to get in through that audio port and affect the phone more than anything else. And so I agree with that. It can't hurt to have an additional speaker. I've always felt like the current audio on the phones sucks really bad, and that having an additional speaker will be very helpful. But again, while I miss it and there will be some adjustment, I think there will be things that some innovation that will come instead. So those cars who only have audio jacks will come up with some variation of a Bluetooth device that they can connect to while they're still charging their phone, that they can use Bluetooth. I mean, Bluetooth has become fairly common from a standpoint of even though we might still have a connected headphone jack, that there is still plenty of options that are Bluetooth. It just hasn't been a really good set of headphones, in my opinion, I guess. We have quite a few, like on motorcycles and things like that, that work really well, have good long battery life, last 12, 14 hours. But I just don't feel like there's been a really good set that plugs into your ears, and I'm not sure 5 hours does it either for what they actually have on their current upcoming headphones.
5 hours of talk time and 24 hours of listening time, right? That
I hope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually Apple's pretty good about battery.
Yeah, I agree. If anybody is, you're right. They have been, and hopefully that will be a good solution. And then somebody will build on that and do something similar, or license their technology and hopefully come out with, because I do think it's a great idea that it's detecting when there's in your ear and it turns off the power so it doesn't burn the battery, like things like that. Little touches like that help a tremendous amount. And there have been, like I said, in some high-end motorcycle helmet headphones and things like that, they do things like that. They detect, when something's playing and turn itself off, or they detect the remotes and turn them off. And, I do feel like at least we're making some headway that might solve this problem. I just really think as a whole, it's just going to be people in cars or airplanes that might have some problems.
Yesterday, Twitter enabled live video notifications from individual accounts. The subscribe button appears on the account's profile page. Subscribers will receive alerts when a Periscope stream goes live, for example. However, according to BuzzFeed, as of today, Twitter is killing the button, at least for now. But at least Twitter did roll out new features for direct messages, adding read receipts and showing who in a direct message has read and responded to it, typing indicators, and web link preview. So getting a little bit, I guess, one step forward, one step back when it comes to being able to subscribe to various video creators, and getting a little bit more chat friendly. The love it, leave it, hate it, back together, break up relationship that Twitter has with direct messages now seems to be on again, as they are building a more robust way for people to communicate on a regular basis with direct message. Do either of these particular advancements tickle your pickle, Scott?
Well, one is I love any of this kind of content because it produces forensics content for me to review later. And so anytime I see more data and more content, people doing direct messages, I'm pretty happy about it because it'll produce some data that I can review and get paid for. But second, Twitter's got to do something to be viable so that they can actually figure out a way to make some money, so that they don't continue to fall in this collapse that they are, and eventually going to disappear if they don't solve this problem very quickly of how they're going to produce some income. So anything that they have is a positive step, I'm going to say. I will tell you, it is getting really tiring dealing with 140 character messages and trying to actually do anything from a business perspective. It's very difficult if you're going to try to be on a business platform. I understand the why it's there and trying to stay in, the 160 characters of an SMS message, but those days have kind of passed, and we don't really even have that limitation on phones for the most part anymore. So I'd be happy to see, at least an increase in size, maybe a double.
Well, I mean, however they go ahead and handle the specific issue of character limits, the one thing that they are absolutely pushing forward to, and this is very important today, as this is the kickoff of the NFL, is that they are going to be a partnership with the National Football League to air games, ways that people can make sure they do not miss a game on Twitter's platform is very important for them, because again, they are going to be the ones who are selling advertising against this extraordinarily, if not prohibitively, expensive content. So it's curious to see that they have not settled on exactly how they want people to do this, while the NFL is already in the process of kicking off. ZDNet's Mary Jo Foley reports that Microsoft will launch a new Surface-branded all-in-one PC this October. According to her contacts, the product is being called Cardinal and is being positioned as a machine that can turn your desk into a studio. Foley speculates that the all-in-one may ship in different screen sizes from 21-inch to 27-inch. Microsoft is also rumored to be highlighting an OEM device at the same event. either of these interest you?
Again, for kind of the same reason, like I really love the devices that they're putting out and the way that they help us deal with forensics and deal with content. The more devices, the better. I see a lot of things in a lot of different cases and a lot of the data recovery stuff that I'm working on. So, I think they're heading in the right direction, and I think they are becoming more popular, and I'm seeing them more and more in for forensics and for data recovery cases. So that kind of shows me at least their popularity is increasing over just, say, the iPad or something that's a lot more closed platform.
Now, I do want to apologize for all of our listeners and viewers. Obviously, we endeavor every single day here at Daily Tech News Show to bring you the top news, the stuff that not only shapes your world, but specifically the world that you will face in the future. However, with Tom gone for the last week and a half, I'm going to issue a proactive apology that we have buried the lead in this week's news. And that is that we did not immediately tell you up top, not about Apple's EarPods, not about the new Surface All-in-One, but rather Alphabet's Project Wing Unit and Chipotle, who have teamed up to deliver burritos by drone to the students of Virginia Tech. The FAA approved the experimental service that will start this month and run just a few weeks. The drones are self-guided hybrid aircraft that will fly like planes but convert to hover like helicopters and use a winch to make their delivery. Human pilots will be on standby to take control to satisfy FAA requirements. Chipotle burritos by way of drones. We might not have flying cars, Scott, but at least we have this tasty consolation prize. Obviously, this is something that is a bit of a gimmick, and we're kind of joking around here. But I think it is encouraging for drone enthusiasts to see some a commercial application, even one that is as silly as this, out there in the world. That the FAA is starting to at least dip their toe in agreeing to these sort of experiments.
Now, I think you are just waiting for Taco Bell to do the same thing so that you can have your delivery without actually having to get in the car.
I mean, I have a beautiful view in my apartment here in Oakland. I would love to retreat to my roof and have some kind of Taco Bell activity land right in my hand. It would truly a glorious day. Airbnb introduced policy changes to short-term rentals in response to allegations and criticism of discrimination by hosts and potential guests. Starting November 1st, it will ask all users to agree to a, quote, community commitment, end quote, that works with others, that you will work with others, quote, regardless of race, religion, national origin, disability, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or age, end quote. Because the company will also experiment with reducing the prominence of user photos and accelerate the use of instant booking. They also, in a letter to users, touted a new program wherein if somebody proves or reports an instance of discrimination, Airbnb themselves will try to find you an equivalent Airbnb in the area, and if not, find you other lodging. This is retroactive to other people who have lodged complaints of discrimination. This all stems, of course, from a lot of bad publicity that came Airbnb's way, wherein somebody, specifically one pops to mind of a gentleman of color, that tried to get a room, was denied after he had been initially accepted, then had a friend of his that was white that tried for the exact same room and was given it. Airbnb, of course, is not any stranger to controversy. Does this seem like something for you, Scott, that is a good faith effort going forward?
Well, I think it is a good faith effort. However, there probably are going to be a lot of problems going forward. And, this is kind of right up my alley because the same user, I believe, also sued Airbnb. And they're trying to quell kind of the lawsuit side of people suing them for discrimination and race discrimination, because they do in Airbnb put right up front your photo and reviews by other people and try to kind of, give a good impression about who you are, because you're doing a lot more profile building when you're trying to stay at an Airbnb as opposed to, Uber or something like that, where it's, there's a lot less material. And so that means they're going to have to do a lot more to get rid of stats and things people are going to do. But the problem I have is that there's some of these instances where, maybe, and I don't want to start like a whole nother controversy here about racism and things like that, but I mean, I might not necessarily want to stay at someone who's like the head of the KKK or something like that. So there may be some premise to know who you're staying with or stay, and I understand what the problems are from that happening, that, they're putting profiles, pictures out there and they're trying to do that. But why would you want to make somebody, what if a person of color does end up staying at a KKK member's house? That's not going to be very helpful for them either, who would want to do that. So I don't know how they're going to control this in a way that kind of gets rid of discrimination without putting somebody at risk.
Well, I think Airbnb's point would be that they would just prefer that the Grand Wizard did not list his, rental cash.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But we're saying don't discriminate against them either, right? So I don't know. You don't always know what these items are. And I've stayed in them across multiple countries. So, and Airbnb has always been very friendly and very helpful to me from that standpoint. And people have, it's always been a really great experience for me. But I don't know what some of the other people are experiencing from that standpoint. Well,
here's a platform that never discriminates. That is our Reddit. Please, we want to issue a gigantic thank you to Semi, Calvarez, Captain Kipper, the Lazy One, and everyone else who participates on the subreddit. Join the fun and submit stories you find and vote on them over at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that are the top stories. Let's get into our discussion. Is data a tangible property? Obviously, this is a bit of a deep dive here, so go ahead and affix your masks and adjust your breathing apparatus as we head on in. Scott, give us a primer on some of the issues with this particular subject.
So as some of you have followed me in other things probably know, I do a lot of forensics. I do data recovery. I teach classes. I do a number of different things. But I testify in court, and I work on multiple types of cases from murders down through divorce. But some of the instances of the things that I've worked on have involved insurance companies and tax issues as well. So one of the current ones that's come up that I have testified about in Colorado, and something that is trying to be defined at this point, and pretty much as best I can tell, in one of the first court cases that's happened since 1993 with a case about AOL dealing with the same kind of instances, is whether or not data is a tangible asset for the purposes of taxing. And this came up over a number of different reasons. And I do have some opinions with regards to where it fits into the scheme of things and what I've testified about and what has actually occurred. But just to give the users kind of a premise about where we stand with this, it had to do with the idea that AMC movie theaters would have a movie reel or something that has been normally taxed as a use tax when it comes in to the movie theater. They've actually got a movie they're displaying, they're making money on, and accounting might tax that particular item. And then the argument has been made is that now that it's digital and that it's not actually a reel of film anymore, that it's not tangible property, it's not an item that actually exists, it's a complete intangible item and should not be taxed. So therefore, the money that was being received by a county that might go to a police force or something like that to assist in problems at a movie theater, Aurora County of all places, would also now cease to exist. They wouldn't get any more money if that were true.
So because the county would not be receiving the tax benefit that would normally come along with the fact that reels were coming in and out of that movie theater, that would affect them having county law enforcement presence.
Well, that's a result. That's a result of what would happen on the back end. That's not the argument itself.
Sure. The argument is whether or not it's what is the difference between there being a physical crate coming in and there being a reel of film and them, AMC, for example, downloading the movies on a hard drive.
Yes, or being delivered by satellite dish or something like that. What is the difference? Is the content that is received the movie that is received, does it consist of something tangible? Because there's an argument with regards to magnetic media or electrons that are basically captured in a solid state disk. What would actually constitute something that is stored that is a tangible item, as opposed to, say, a book or something that's sitting there on the table that you can reach out and touch or do something with? Is data a tangible asset? Do you own it? Do you possess it? It's some of the same kind of things that there are some arguments about that existed in courts for, say, the purpose of somebody having child porn or somebody embezzling money or doing something, on a digital resource as opposed to a physical resource. And there's been a lot of different types of resolutions, because certain states don't care what it is. They just tax it. Like the state of Washington just taxes everything regardless of what that item is, whether it's a service or, Netflix, as an example, is taxed in some locations, but other locations it's not. Like currently in the state of Georgia, Netflix is not currently taxed, but in the state of Washington, it is taxed. So
just to clear up for people, you did mention that you have a side in this. You are an expert on one side of this particular case, the AMC versus Aurora County case. What side are you on, and what is your position on that side?
Well, I'm at least from a standpoint of being hired at my position, or what I'm not paid for a particular opinion per se. I'm paid for my time. I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of things to try to determine this. So, but in my opinion, it is a tangible asset. That data, one of the things that constitutes a tangible asset in a lot of cases is, people are saying whether or not you can reach out and touch it or do something, but whether or not it exists in a form that can be destroyed is also a predominantly strong idea. So as an example, let me kind of pose this to you. Mm-hmm. If you had an idea, could I destroy that idea with something physical? Could I use a hammer to destroy your idea? Or could I use a hammer to destroy your constitutional rights, or, run over it with a car and get rid of your right just because it's, versus tangible versus intangible. So, the premise that I kind of come to is that an intangible asset is impervious to a tangible asset. So if you have a tangible asset such as a hammer or something along those lines that you can destroy something with, then there must be something that exists for that to actually be there for you to be able to destroy it. So whether or not we're talking about, because all of us are made of atoms, all of us are made from, a selection of electrons and things that are moving around. So does that mean that data isn't, just because it does exist there, or it can be copied, or it can be transmitted? Does that mean that it doesn't exist just because, in a tangible state, just because you can't see it or you can't touch it in the way that we're used to, like a book?
So how does that argument get changed if you are then selling permanent or non-permanent rights of use? If you are only using it for a little bit of time, you're renting it versus owning it, how does that affect whether or not it is going to be taxed or subject to other permanent good restrictions?
Well, and there are some legal issues with regards to renting and whether or not it's owned. One of the items that typically comes up is whether or not it's insured as well, and the way that you can insure something, and whether or not it constitutes being a tangible asset for its insurance purposes. So there are a lot of items that are involved contractually with trying to identify those things and what can happen to them. Can somebody steal it? Can somebody physically touch it or do something? In the particular instance with what you're talking about, mm-hmm. From a rental standpoint, again, there's a contract that will define what happens with that. Now, the contract itself may be written in paper, and that may be tangible, but the concept of the contract is intangible, because the agreement that you're actually making, it has no relevance to whether or not it's on this piece of paper or not. It's a concept, and so concepts with regards to a contract or something like that, or even patents kind of go back and forth. There's actually some different situations where sometimes patents are considered tangible and sometimes they're considered intangible, depending on insurance purposes and what you're buying and things like that. But the insurance world, in a lot of cases is one of the predominant items that starts to help to kind of define these things, what can actually be paid for and protected versus destroyed. And so, on the back end, a lot of these things, for instance, a digital newspaper.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're reading it on the screen versus being delivered to your door, does that change this content in any way that, and again, this is a problem throughout the United States. So you've had newspapers that have been delivered to the door for years, a tax is paid, there's a service that's actually occurring, the county, the city, everybody's getting support by that. What if all that was just dissolved? And that now, because you're reading it digitally, that there is no tax and there is no support, then you actually have a reclining system. And certainly I don't want to pay any more taxes than anybody else does from that standpoint, but there is a balance here where if everything becomes digital, we don't have movie stores, we don't have music, we don't have a number of things anymore that we used to have. That's kind of dissolved.
I was wondering if I could step in just a little bit, and I was wondering, what about software? I mean, software itself is essentially just data, right? Except that when it's bought and sold, you're essentially buying a license to use it. So, in the same way that like you have a deed to a house or a contract that supposedly allows you to deed out, it's an intangible asset, but you can still kind of charge for that. You could still collect a fee or a tax or like what you're saying, a use tax before.
Traditionally, most places previously, because it has changed over time with certain states because they're realizing the market has dissolved. You don't have the tangible store that you used to go to and buy something. So some states have changed what the law is with regards to taxation. Generally speaking, for example, in Georgia, if I buy software and I download it and I never receive a package, I don't pay tax. If I buy something that is software and they send me a disc or I picked it up at the store, then they do charge me tax. But there are other places like Washington State where they have redefined that, basically saying they don't care what it is or how you get it, that you are going to pay tax on it because it is a product. And I will tell you that my stance in looking at all this, what you just said is the defining moment of what I think would be taxable and what is not taxable. So for example, you buy TurboTax and you use it to create your tax form per se, or some Intuit software, and you sit here and you use Quicken to make a database that consists of your data. And in that particular instance, it's not a product. The product itself is that you have bought something from Intuit or you bought Quicken, and that would be a product, and that makes sense to tax. Does it make sense to tax that you have a database that you have put your data into? And I would say that does not. That doesn't, even though it might be tangible in a fact of where it's stored, it takes up space, it has time to transfer, things like that. And this is where a movie is different, because a movie, while it is data and is delivered, it is the end user product. They're not modifying the movie. They're not changing the movie. They're not making it their own. They're not doing something to that data. And so, or music or a number of other things. So should music be taxed because you are receiving music, as opposed to I made music or I made my own song and now I've stored it on my hard drive?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because music oftentimes is charged as a performance fee, like under a performance rather than an actual good.
Not if you're buying an MP3 or buying music over the internet, it is not in a lot of cases charged that way. It is if you are going to a theater and you are sitting down and you are listening to, say, a orchestra playing the music, then that's done under a performance, but not physically when you're buying the music itself through iTunes or some other source from that standpoint.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Roger.
I was just wondering, and one of the things I do want to mention, this doesn't necessarily relate just to taxes, it's also things of insurance, but also legal issues when it comes to whether or not, what I'm thinking is
inheritance is one of the problems.
Yeah, is what you're saying. If you had an idea, if you could crush it or not, could you, if you sold someone an idea for a show, say I'm going to do a sitcom about a bunch of computer geeks in a house that's broken or something, would you consider that is that considered a tangible, intangible good? Would it be taxable? Would it be something that you could consider theft, like stealing? We have copyright ideas, but you have to copyright it. I'm just kind of I'm wondering if it's really an issue of how we define tangible and intangible, or if it's just a tax code thing where we just say, okay, now these things, anything you make money off of, we'll just charge you a tax.
Well, there already is some issues with regards to that. So, for instance, the idea of the show itself isn't taxable, but the concept that I sold this idea to someone can be, and in many cases is taxable, and that you are receiving. And it really depends sometimes on how you're hired or what this idea is or how you've sold it. If I sold the rights to my book, I mean, there's some things like that that have already been decided and that they're still fighting about. But, a lot of times it does come down to what specifically the law is saying about whether or not by state or by a uniform code, whether or not this item is tangible or intangible, because that has been the defining moment. And things have changed a lot. I mean, let's be honest, in the last 20 years with regards to what we're storing in our photos that used to be physically printed and sitting in a book versus now digitally on our computer, that have you suffered a loss if you lose that thing? Or is that something that if you have done some art, as an example, if I did some digital art, should that be tangible in the same way that a picture on the wall might be? And so those are where some of those arguments come in. But there are defining moments with regards to performances. But just so that you understand too, with regards to performances where you go in and you listen to an orchestra playing, they usually have a seat tax. There is some sort of tax that was paid at the time that the person either bought the ticket or came and sat down in that seat. And they actually have a tax for them to sit there and listen to that music that isn't defined under the normal, I've got a performance, the performance itself isn't being taxed.
It's a peripheral tax on something that related to the performance, but not necessarily on the performance itself.
That's right.
Sorry to interrupt, Jerry.
Oh, no, please. Ladies and gentlemen, of course.
It's a complex topic. Yeah.
It's complex. I think part of it is that, typically when people refer to an intangible good, they think of like, wills and things that might be constructed in a legal sense, but not necessarily something that I'm going to pick up and I say, like, I have the screwdriver, it's worth 50 cents kind of thing. And, people mention in the chat room things about like services and performance, but you mentioned the idea of inheritance, like something you can bequeath, offload to someone else, but still have its intrinsic value carried on regardless of it no longer being part of me or my possession and being like, say, my sister or something.
There definitely is a huge issue with inheritance or an item that exists as a digital or tangible asset from that perspective that might have been of value. And that, I think that it helps us to define that as a tangible asset, because then the law would be more straightforward with, who can get it or what actually happens, rather than, I have these digital assets that somebody decides when I die. There's always this big fight in court with regards to what you actually have and who's going to get it. And whether or not it even exists, sometimes it's just locked out and you just don't even have it anymore from that standpoint. So, if somebody had a huge amount of art that they paid for in some way that's, sitting on a Dropbox somewhere and somebody dies and they lock them out of the Dropbox account, what does it take to actually get that content? And if it is an actual asset, then it has possession, it has ownership, and the courts would help with defining what those things are. And I think this is a future problem that's just going to grow. We're only at kind of the cusp of somebody having something that means something that only exists digitally.
And that's what I think is so exciting about this particular issue, is that we are just beginning to see what the face of this will be and on what kind of crossroads people will make the decisions of what it means and how it will be defined. Scott, you mentioned that very interesting. One of those cases is going to be AMC versus Aurora County. This is something that is close to a decision, right?
Right, that's correct. It's already been through the court, and the judge is sitting on the judge's desk waiting for a decision to be made based on all the papers, everything that's already been written and produced and testified about. So
if you would like to continue to follow this issue, that would be a great case to start with. Again, that is AMC Theaters versus Aurora County. Let's get into our pick of the day. DTNS boss John Clayton in Montana wanted to share his pick of the day with us. He says, I wanted to share an incredible combo for cord cutters, an HD home run, and the Channels app on the Apple TV or iOS. We have multiple Apple TVs throughout the house, but only one TV has an OTA antenna hooked up to it. Now with this combo, I can watch over-the-air broadcast on any TV in the house. I don't have to find the TV's remote to do so. It even supports about 30 minutes of a buffer for pausing and seeking through live television. Channels can be found at http:/getchannels.com. I got the HD Home Run Extend for the onboard transcoder, but I found it unnecessary on the local network and cheaper Connect models, and it probably would. The cheaper Connect model probably would have worked out fine. Hope you've had a good vacation, Tom. The show is in good hands while you are out. Well, hopefully, John continues to believe that after listening to me handling the show over the last 2 weeks, but I very much appreciate him writing in. Of course, you can follow in his great example by sending your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Let's get into our messages of the day. Nick chimes in on yesterday's Apple announcement show. He writes, I find it really interesting that Apple quietly killed the solid gold Apple Watch edition in favor of more cheaper yet still premier ceramic watches. I think it would be really interesting for one of the Apple rumor folks like Mark Gurman to dig deeper and find out why the presumably high profitable solid gold watch was killed. There's surely got to be a great story behind it. We're going to take a wild guess here and say that it got killed because people didn't buy it, and that's saying something considering they probably didn't have to sell many of them to make it a big deal. Were you ever tempted to buy the $10,000 solid gold Apple Watch edition, Scott?
I have never been tempted yet to buy the cheap $200 version of the Apple Watch. I just, at this point in time, I think that they need to, and maybe they have with the Series 2, maybe they've expanded its capabilities and battery life and things like that so that it would be more useful. But I've certainly done investigations on them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a daily Apple Watch user. I love it. I can't wait until the next iteration and the next OS, which I've heard very, very good things about. I, however, am not Floyd Money Mayweather and have never wanted to spend $10,000 on much, let alone a watch that is already, as of tomorrow, going to be obsolete via presale. Hey, everybody, don't forget to catch day 6 of DTNS with Australian Peter Wells. I love that he is just Australian Peter Wells, like he's a pro wrestler. He's got his own little intro. Go ahead and listen to it this weekend if you want to see his contribution as part of our normal DTNS lineup. Help us reach our goal at patreon.com/DTNS. And again, thanks not only to our super producer, Roger, who did all the heavy lifting during that awesome interview, but also to the man who was our expert, Scott Moulton. You have myharddrivedied.com. Where can people continue to follow along with your work?
Yeah, that's the place. Myharddrivedied.com is where I keep most of the items up for anybody to follow, and from there there'll be links to YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or whatever they want to talk to me on.
Well, we would like to thank you for joining us. This is one of those kinds of conversations that I feel very, very passionately is what makes Daily Tech News Show so much different than every other tech podcast, is that it has the courage, yes, the courage, to delve into these kinds of issues before they enter into the hype bubble where everybody has to take a side and make it into things that it very often isn't. So on a conceptual level, we can bring those kinds of discussions to you. And I thank you, Scott, for taking your time in doing it for us today.
Anytime. Happy to be here. Thank you very much.
If you would just like the headlines of the day in less than 10 minutes, subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at Alpha Geek Radio and DiamondClub.tv, and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Tomorrow's guest, Terry Johnson, joins me. I will see you guys later.
This podcast is part of the Frog Pants Studios Network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
And we're out.
Woohoo! Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Scott.
for being on. I know you have a pretty hectic schedule.
Yeah, but I'm always happy to do whatever you need. So if you need anybody, let me know.
We normally have the listeners submit their ideas for what should be the title for the episode. And so here are the top ones: Airbnb bigotry, 2 cables, 1 port, burrito bombs, Sky Chipotle and the burrito bowl of tomorrow. Can I touch your bits? It might be a little uncomfortable. Please hammer, don't hurt the data. What's the other one? Data time, can't touch this. Intangible taxes are a digital duty. Huh. Interesting play on words there, ICU. Bluetooth pods, salmonella takes wing. You know, salmonella only work. We'll go into salmonella.
I kind of like Sky Chipotle and the burrito bowl of tomorrow.
Well, if you in the audience have a particular desire for one or the other, vote now. Well, you still can. We'll be opening this up. We'll leave this open for like 3 more minutes. So let me ask you this one question, Scott. As someone who does forensics on data, what's the best way to kill my hard drive? Should I just put a drill through my old hard drive if I don't want anyone ever to pull?
Yeah, but what I would do first, because there's no easy way to certify it, what I would do first is I would do what's called secure erase, and then after secure erase, then I would put drills through it. So I would drill holes in it, and you're pretty guaranteed at that point that there's absolutely zero chance anything's coming back.
Well, if I put a drill through it, I mean, how much of that data could conceivably be recovered?
Well, probably none, only because even if there's just one hole, what happens is the head moves over the drive, and as it hits that spot where there's physical damage, it's probably going to rip the head off of the drive itself. So every time that I've done it, as soon as you turn it on, it whacks the edge of that. And then, because it'll be a rough edge too if you've drilled it, it's not going to be a perfectly flat edge. So the head will hit that, and it will completely destroy the head. Even in an initialization phase, the head moves across the platter almost every time. And so even with just one hole in it, you're going to hit it eventually, and it's going to destroy it.
So like, I mean, I could just put like 5 drill holes through it, like Swiss cheese or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I have a certification process where I do that, but the entire point of the certification process is to verify it's wiped. So I do the wipe process first and certify that. Then I turn around and then drill holes in it to show that it's damaged and it's beyond recoverable. And in many cases, there's a ROM on the board. Not every drive is exactly the same because some can be rebuilt. But normally, if you put a drill through a ROM on the PCB board, you cannot usually recover it at all because the ROM contains some tables that would be very difficult to rebuild. They're unique to that drive. So,
have you ever pulled data off magnetic tape?
Yes, but again, this is one of those things where you have to know how it was laid out on the thing. So most of the time, you've got to have an idea about what the program is that was used. Sometimes you can figure it out. Sometimes once you actually start looking at the tape, there'll be a header or there'll be some information on it that you can actually tell. But there is a company in Atlanta that is an expert at that and has written code to deal with a lot of it. So a lot of the very complex cases will refer the tape stuff to them. It's called EMAG. So that's one of the companies that normally would handle that kind of stuff. But I've certainly dealt with some other one, where they're using Semantic or Veritas or a couple others that, we've got to pull data off the drive, Solaris, a few things like that. So most of the time the drives are available, and if you know the application, you can usually pull it back without too big a problem. If you have to splice a tape together, you can usually get something running again.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for that bit of information. I have chosen Sky Chipotle and the Burrito Bowl of Mañana as a title. I want a burrito bowl because the flour is actually kind of heavy. But I am also going to say goodbye to the folks on Alpha Geek Radio. Thank you for listening. Been awesome. See you guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
See, that's off. And then thank you to everyone in the chat room for watching our live stream. And I'm going to stop broadcast, and I will see you guys mañana as well.
See you later.